What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show. As always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. Also know that I am a certified empowerment coach, president and CEO of Express Your Vibe Coaching and Communications. And the Dr. Vibe show is the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations. Now, back on March 22nd, we were doing an incredible epic conversation, and it just went kaputs. It went like boom. Now, people would think because my guest is in Bolivia, it was on her end. She's innocent. It was on my end.
Surprisingly, right?
No, they say things can happen. Things can happen. So I asked after our conversation went kaputs, would you like to do it again? She said, sure. So she is back. Lia Miller is wife, mother, professional diplomat, award-winning blogger, children's book author, social inclusion and diversity advocate, DIY locked naturalista, if you can tell, avid reader, foodie, movie buff, sports and exercise enthusiast, passionate about the arts, news junkie, and a world traveler. And tonight, I guess this is going to be part one of two epic conversations now.
Yes.
We are going to be discussing work-life balance. How do women make it seem so effortless? So welcome back from Bolivia before she goes traveling again.
Yes, tomorrow.
Miss Lia Miller. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me come on again. I'm really looking forward to talking about this subject because it's one very near and dear to my heart.
All right. And what's been going on since we last had you on the show?
Gosh, so many things, but primarily just trying to get myself together in terms of my side hustle life. You know, trying to finish the first book in a series of children's books that I'm writing to help promote children of color to see themselves as, you know, members of the larger society, global travelers, and seeing themselves getting beyond their own neighborhoods. So that's close to being done. I have 3 or 4 different ideas for follow-on books, so I need to start putting the ideas down on paper or type them into my computer. I'm also working on a blog series for this website called Government Loop, GovLoop, and I'm a featured contributor for them right now. I'm in their 15th cohort, and that just means that I have to basically write a blog post for them a week for 12 weeks.
Wow.
So this is week 8 of 12.
Congratulations.
And that's been really interesting because it's allowed me to stretch a little bit and spread my wings to talk about subject matter that I don't always write about. So, for instance, the piece that I wrote for this week was about having uncomfortable conversations and how do you address someone in the workplace when they say an off-color or offensive comment. Do you let it slide or do you not? And I specifically gave some tips about how to handle those situations because I found in talking to a lot of my female colleagues that females tend to let that stuff slide because if they perceive that a comment was made innocently or not with malice, if it was made kind of just out of ignorance or someone was just sort of, you know, just talking and something bad came out. But I make the case that even if it is innocent, I think you still need to address it because if you don't, then the person won't know that they've done something wrong and they can't course correct and they may not be aware of how they're coming across to others. And if the person consciously knows what they're saying, then you need to check them because they can't do that. And they shouldn't be allowed to do that, and you shouldn't empower them to do that by not stepping to them and being like, hey, that was wrong. Because even at a minimum, if they don't change their own perspective or their own point of view, they'll change their behavior around you because you see them for who they truly are, and you let them know that you see them.
Excellent, excellent. So as you can tell, Lia don't hold back. She's hard in the paint.
I do. I go hard in the paint.
Hard in the paint. Oh, by the way, were you happy that Villanova won?
Yes, I was.
There you go.
Very happy. They're not my school, but I always ride for my Big East folks. So.
And you're wearing your Cuse orange tonight, right?
I am, because I'm always an orange woman, always.
All right.
And got the blue nails, see?
Yeah.
Got the blue and the orange, so always. It's always in my life, my heart. I bleed orange.
All right.
That's me.
Excellent. Well, tonight, and we're going to get through this without any technical challenges. Yes. We're going to start our conversation over again about work-life balance. How do women make it seem so effortless? Why did you want to talk about this?
I want to talk about this because it's something that I deal with all the time. I mean, I'm the type of person that I'm always into something, as you can tell by the bio that you read at the beginning. I'm just kind of all over the place, and I've been that way since I was a little girl. It's just who I am. I think I've been blessed with having a lot of energy, and so I'm able to kind of pour myself fully into a lot of things. But now as I'm getting older and I have more demands on my time in ways that I didn't have before, such as a wife and a mom, and I'm a full-time professional and I'm doing all these other things, and I'm not unique. There are many women out there doing the same thing and many parents out there doing the same thing. It's a conversation that I find myself having all the time, and it's something that I think we need to spend more time talking about, because even though women make it look so effortless, there is a cost and there is a toll. And I think a lot of people aren't aware of that, and I think women need to, women in particular, I mean parents in general, working parents especially, but women in particular need to understand that they shouldn't have to do it all, and they don't need to do it all. They don't need to be everything to everyone. And that's something that I tell myself, because I'm always trying to be everything for every person, and I realize that that's just not possible. That's something that's superhuman, and I am only human. So I'm trying to be realistic about what I can give and what I need to get in order to continue giving it the same way, giving it the same levels.
I want to put some historical context on this. Compare your mother in doing it all to you doing it all. Similarities, differences?
I would say probably a bit of both. I'll start with the similarities. The similarities in the sense that my mom is an extremely hard worker, just like I am. So I think I learned my work ethic from her. She's extremely professional, and she carries herself, in the best way possible, and really has a positive reputation. She's an extreme professional, and I try to be the same. I think sometimes where she fell down was, as we were kind of moving through our children years, there were times when she just was spread too thin. She was in night school at the same time as working full time and had 3 kids at home. Yes, she was married, so our father was there and present and helping, but she still felt that she had a lot of the responsibility to do the household work more than my dad. Even though my dad was actively in the kitchen, he would do laundry, he would put us to bed, he would take care of us in those ways. My mom felt, I think, that a lot of that burden fell to her, and sometimes I think she felt overwhelmed and resentful, and sometimes that would come out on us kids, and we would know why mommy was so mad, when we were that age. And so now, as a mom, I understand better what she was experiencing and what she was going through, because of course as a kid you're kind of oblivious to what's going on behind the scenes. It's kind of like that Wizard of Oz scene where you're looking at the Wizard of Oz and they say don't pay attention to what's behind the curtain. So you don't know what's happening, and what's behind the curtain is the real effort. It's the real cost of what my mom had to do to make sure that she could raise 3 healthy, competent, capable daughters. So some of the differences that we have are that I think my mom would give and give and give until she kind of collapsed and be so tired she needed to rest. But in my case, I feel myself getting to that point, and then I stop. I stop immediately from everything that I'm doing, and I try to do something for me, even if it's just taking a nap, if it's just watching a movie, but it's something that I'm not giving to anyone else. My energy is not going anywhere else except focusing inward on myself. And so in that way, maybe I'm more selfish than my mother was, but I feel like it's been restorative for me, and it's allowed me to continue to give in the way that I do, to the extent that I do, because I don't use myself up. Right. And I feel like when we were young, my mother would often use herself up, and she would just be at her wit's end, and then she would hit the wall, hit a breaking point, and then she would reset and start over again.
Right.
And I don't want to go through that cycle, so I don't.
Understood. Now, the ladies that you associate with on a regular basis, majority are they a combination of single and married, or all married?
I mean, in my professional circles, I would say the majority of the people who are at my career level are probably married.
Okay.
But my personal and social circles are a combination of people in relationships, married and or long-term, relationships, or singles. And since I mentor a lot of younger officers, of course they're single, but it's just that's the stage of life where they're at. But I would say the people who have kind of sparked this topic for me are other women who are married with kids who are full-time professionals.
I would find it interesting. Now, I know you'll provide perspective of married women in regards to this subject, but I'd be interested too to see if you ever hear for those who are not married who are trying to do it all compared to those who are married and trying to do it all. Do you get perspectives from both communities?
I do. I do. I think, before I go any further, it has to be said that there is no challenge like being a single parent. So, I say my complaints of work-life balance with a grain of salt because I'm not doing it alone. So that in and of itself puts me in much better stead than a single parent who does not have that option or can't as easily take advantage of having someone else right there to take some of the burden off. So, before we go any further, I definitely have to give all props, all shout outs to single parents because now that I'm a parent, it's the most difficult thing I think I've ever been given the opportunity to do in my life, and I couldn't imagine doing it by myself.
Okay.
So that said, where I feel like I hear from both sides, and what I hear from the single parents is just that, it is difficult. They don't have any downtime. They get no breaks unless they have a really good, relationship with the other parent where the kids go to their father for, a couple of weeks, come back to the mom, or they take turns on the weekends, or they have some sort of a system that works for them. But in the cases where the other parent is just not in the picture, I think that's really challenging for single parents. But what's really wonderful about many of the single parents that I know is that they're very resourceful. So they take advantage of their community and they get their children involved in activities. So they find other ways to provide different adult nurturing in their children's lives beyond themselves. And that also frees them up to get a break. If their kids are in sports at that time when the kid's at the sports practice, that parent can go and do something else that they need to do. And so it's not as easy, and I think they do rely on their networks, but I think all parents rely on their networks. I think what I'm hearing more from the married camp is a sense of frustration that in the household, the work-life balance isn't actually equal or balanced. And you and I discussed the term equal the other day, and by equal, I mean in the household that every adult or every person in the household, if they're at an age to contribute, are contributing, that there's no set roles, that there's no one parent that has to take on all of the primary responsibilities at home in addition to work. As far as I'm concerned, my view of an equal household is a household where both parents are contributing in terms of the things that they do. I'm not talking about financial contribution. I'm not talking about if one parent is a stay-at-home and one is in the office. I'm saying that when it comes to the housework, to the life work, that each parent chips in, each parent does their part. Sometimes the pendulum might swing in one direction, and sometimes it'll swing in the other direction. But the goal is to try to keep it somewhere in the middle so no one parent, in this case specifically the mothers, feel like they're overwhelmed or overburdened. Because what happens is that mothers, I think they tend to they don't complain. So they see something that needs to be done, even if they don't want to do it, they do it because it needs to be done, or their child needs this or needs that, or they feel like, I can't leave this kitchen dirty, so they'll clean it up, even though they're the ones who cooked and prepared the meal and did everything else. To me, that's wrong. I feel like if you're in a relationship with somebody and you cook that night, then the other person needs to do the dishes. If the other person is cooking and you step up and do the dishes, it's not really that deep. It's just making sure that the burden of responsibility doesn't fall only on one parent, and specifically women.
Mm-hmm. Have you encountered or witnessed women who are trying to do it all and it's not effortless?
Yes. I think in most cases it's not effortless. They just make it look that way. Because like I said, there's a toll. So some of the most successful mothers that I've seen who are also working professionals are either slightly overweight or very much overweight. They look 10 years older or more than what they really are, chronologically speaking. They have no time whatsoever to pursue the things that they used to do before they became full-time professionals or moms. Like they're not able to pursue their hobbies. And so I feel like in those cases, even though everything is getting done and their kids are fine and their household is stable and they've got a good gainfully employed job, they don't have joy in their lives. They don't have space for themselves. They are losing themselves. And that's where I feel like this is really wrong. And there needs to be more of a balance between who's doing what and for what reason.
So then, Lia, why do you feel ladies in that situation are not speaking up?
I don't know. I mean, in some cases, I think they feel like it's too late. Like they should have set the standard from the beginning, and now it's like you can't teach an old dog new tricks type thing. So they don't want to also take on the burden of having to fight that fight. I also think women make the mistake of assuming that their spouses know what they need them to do. I think you just need to ask, because I think some women mess themselves up because they just assume that, well, my husband knows that I'm really tired. He saw me come in and he knows that I have a headache, so he's going to go ahead and do that load of laundry in the corner. I don't know why people in relationships seem to think that there's some sort of telepathy going on or something like that. Now, I understand that if you've been with somebody for a long time, you get a sense of a person's mood, you get a sense of a person's behavior, you know how they've reacted, you can tell when they've had a bad day. So yes, there is some expectation that if I come in and I'm looking kind of cranky, that he's going to pick up on that, or my partner will pick up on that. But I also feel like you can't just make that assumption, because they also have had their own day. So you don't know what's going on with them until you've had a chance to check in. So if you really are too tired to do that load of laundry, then ask. And I feel like a lot of my friends just don't ask. So I think that they're kind of painting themselves into the corner of feeling overwhelmed and feeling resentful towards their spouse because they don't ask their spouse to do it. And in some cases, if they do, the spouse would do it. Other cases where they wouldn't, that's where the real problem lies.
I think also too, and I tell people this: you will never, ever, ever 100% know that other person.
Exactly. And there's no way that you could, and I don't know that you should ever have that expectation.
No, because at the best of times, you don't even know yourself.
Exactly. I mean, it's a constant process. I mean, it's like any other thing in life. You always have to check in, you have to learn, you have to be open to it, and you have to grow as it grows. And it's the same thing with relationship, but the key to it all is communication. So like I said, there's no telepathy going on. If you need help, ask for it. If you feel like you're overwhelmed, tell the other person. You know, it could even be as basic as, hey, you make a chore chart for your kids to follow, make one for the family.
How much is this rooted in traditional values?
I think a lot of it is rooted there, because even though we've moved into an era where more and more there's two breadwinners in the household, females are working, females are excelling. In fact, females are graduating at a higher rate from college than men are. More and more females are going into the workplace. There's still sort of this overall traditional value that the woman is still responsible for taking care of home. And to me, that's antiquated and archaic at this point, because it's unfair to expect a woman who in the 50s or before then, whose role was to stay at home and still had a hard time doing everything that needed to be done, now needs to be able to do all of that and do a full-time job and be a parent. It's just unrealistic. And I really hate it when people say that women can have it all, because it's not real. It's not a real thing. It can't happen. My personal belief is that women can have it all, but not at the same time.
Can you explain that?
Yes. So women all the time are told, and I think that they're being sold a pipe dream, and it's a way to kind of maintain the status quo and just put more burden on women to kind of still be responsible for everything at home, still be a good employee, and still be an excellent mother, by telling her that she can have it all. Because most women will take that on board and say, okay, if that's the expectation, then that's what I have to do, and they will rise to that expectation. But when they fail, or if they do something wrong, then that's really devastating, because we're being told that we can do it. And so when we struggle against that, or we have problems, then suddenly we feel like we're a failure as a mother, a failure as a spouse, not the best employee that we could be. And I think that's just not the right mentality for us to be in. I feel like I said before already the analogy of the pendulum, and I think that's really true. Like, there's going to be times when the pendulum is swinging towards work, so you might spend more time in the office and not be able to be home every day after school to beat your kids' practice or to help them with homework. But then there's going to be times when work is kind of more mundane, more routine, or you're between projects, so you have a little bit of a lull, when you can leave the office early and get to your kids' soccer game and get to your kids' swim meet and get to your kids' spelling bee or whatever. But it's not at the same time. There's no way that you can physically be in two places at the same time. So I think it's unfair for people to have the expectation that a mother in particular can do that. You just can't. And at certain points in your life, there's going to be times when your kids are more needy of you, need more from you, than at other points. So obviously during the baby years, I understand why a lot of mothers choose to leave the workforce to go back home to be there for the baby until the baby is old enough to go to daycare, at which point many mothers do look for the opportunity to go back into the workforce. And also later on, when the kids are older, even though maybe it's more emotionally stressful, you don't actually need to be as engaged with your kids on a daily basis, because that's a point in their development where they need to become more independent from you. and start to be able to establish themselves in their own right, so that you know when they go out of your home that they can manage outside of your home. So it's all about, timing, it's understanding balance, and it's understanding that sometimes the pendulum will shift towards work, sometimes it's going to shift towards home, but knowing that that's okay, and never expecting that you should be able to do it all the time. It's just not possible.
Well, now we're going to get into some even more fun conversation. What role do men have in regards to this issue?
To me, I feel like men just need to do more. They need to step up and just avoid some of those perceptions of what a woman's role is, what a woman's place is, that a woman should be expected to be coming home every night after working a full day, just like he did, but she's got to come home and cook dinner while he can go and take a shower and kick his feet up and watch TV every day. To me, that's not okay. That shouldn't be the expectation, unless that's something that couple wants to do, unless she really likes doing that. But it shouldn't be something that is expected of her. I also feel like there shouldn't be an expectation where two people have worked a full-time job, you come home, and then it's the woman who not only has to cook dinner, but also has to do homework with the kids and make their lunches for the next day and set out their clothes and then do a load of laundry from the day before, while the husband is doing whatever, going to have drinks with the boys, watching his game on TV, and not really contributing in that way. Now, of course, he needs to decompress from his day, but so does she. But when does she get her chance to do that, if the expectation is that she has to come home, do the dinner, take care of the kids, and do everything else? So in my view, the men need to feel like it doesn't emasculate them or make them feminine or less of a man if they're taking more responsibility on the home front. And I think it's important for children to see both parents in multiple roles, variety of roles, because then there's no limitation to what they think they can do or what they should do when they're old enough to, have a home of their own.
I think it's interesting because one of the things I hear from a number of men is, you had mentioned about women being confused about their roles. There's a lot of men out there that are confused about their roles also.
Yeah.
So it can cause no wonder there's confusion and potential clashes about this subject.
Absolutely. I think what's happening is because women are challenging traditional gender roles by taking on roles that have been mostly associated with men, it's making men feel displaced, and they don't have a sense of, now, if the woman is working and bringing home the bread, then what does that mean? What's my job? Or if we're both bringing home money, then does she still need to be working on the home front too? Or, does it mean that I'm like second fiddle if I'm taking responsibility for home life? I think maybe what needs to happen is sort of like a reckoning of, what does it mean to be a working professional parent, regardless of gender, in this day and age? What does it take to be successful at work and to have a successful home? What does success even mean in that sense? And I don't think that traditional roles need to necessarily play a role in this new definition. I think it needs to be obviously based on each couple, but I also think that it's okay if the man is the one that chooses to stay home with the kid during the toddler years, or if the father chooses to be a stay-at-home dad. To me, it doesn't make him any less of a man. It means that he's a supportive husband who sees his wife as excelling and is giving her the freedom to pursue that, but he wants to make sure that there's, regular parental presence at home, and so he's taking that sacrifice. And I also don't think there's anything wrong with females who want to continue to be a traditional happy homemaker, June Cleaver type person. There's nothing wrong with that. It's all about personal preferences. But what I want us to start talking about and moving away from are the expectations based on your gender of what you need to be doing in the household. Especially now that in order to survive in the Western world anyway, you have to have a 2-income household.
Well, and you bring up a very interesting point, because you are located in a different country, very different than the United States, and this is always a work-life balancing. Do you see examples where you're located in Bolivia of how women are making it seem so effortless?
I do, but it's also kind of a weird phenomena because it's a class-based effortlessness. Because I see women at the middle and lower socioeconomic levels who struggle every day just to survive, and they work the hardest. And I don't think that's unique to where I am. I think that's a global phenomena. The women who are at the more senior echelons of society, they make it look easy, but it's because they can afford to make it easy, because they can afford the help that they need to be able to do everything that they need to do. So I see women who are out there founding NGOs, launching campaigns for female empowerment, working on entrepreneurship, creating, micro lending opportunities for other women in lower socioeconomic strata to improve their station in life. But these women also are married to owners of television stations, people who own an airline. And so they have a team of people around them who can help make their lives much easier in terms of if she has to go do a media interview or she has to go to a conference, her nanny is there living with them who can wake the kids up in the morning, feed them breakfast, take them to school, pick them up after school, run them around to their activities and come home when mom is coming home so she can have that quality time with her own children, but she doesn't have to worry about making sure her house is in order or that food is cooked or that her kids are in good shape ready to go to school because she's got that support. So she makes it look effortless because she's still out there winning, doing her career thing, but she's got this other team at home that's assisting her.
Mm.
And so I see that as it's an economic thing. It's what sort of benefits and resources can they bring to bear that people in lower socioeconomic strata can't.
Well, as before we to go further, I'd like to thank everyone who's watching live. I see there's some people watching live. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to share. And it's interesting now you've added the whole class dynamic to this conversation. And, there's the traditional stereotypes plus class, and they seem to be such strong forces regardless of where you've been in the world.
Yeah. That's true. I feel like women make it look effortless in the sense that, I always like to think of the analogy, and a good friend in one of my many Facebook groups made this analogy when I told them I was going to talk about this topic. And she said, women are like a duck on water. They seem like they're gliding along, moving along the pond, just kind of going with the flow, unbothered, and everything is really great. But if you take a look at what's going on underneath, you see that they're paddling furiously just to stay afloat. That is what I think work-life balance looks like for women who make it seem effortless, because no one really thinks about all the extra work that goes on behind the scenes. So, we're, and I'm putting myself in this category because I struggle with this every day because I'm working really hard at a very demanding job. It requires a lot of me. I have 2 young school-age kids here. I try to be an attentive spouse, supportive of my husband, but there's a cost, because in addition to those things, I still want to be accountable to myself. I still want to be able to pursue my hobbies and my passions and my joys and things that make me happy, like blogging, like writing, like talking to people, mentoring people, providing advice and help wherever I can. And it's a lot. Sometimes it's too much. And I do feel like maybe on the surface, I appear like the duck on water, but where I really am are the feet furiously paddling underneath. And I know that there's a lot of my peers who feel similarly, but why we make it look effortless is that we don't have time to dwell on that. We have too much to do, so we just keep on going. And then the question is, at what cost?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, because how long can you go without a gap?
Exactly, and that's what I never want to find out, because I feel like if I ever get to that point, I'm going to be at like a crashing point, where I'm too exhausted. So that's why I said sometimes things have to give, and sometimes there's a pendulum. Like there's times when I can feel like this general fatigue, or I'm so tired, and I'm just like, you know what, I'm doing too much. And I have to know myself enough to self-regulate and be like, stop it. You don't need to write 2 posts tonight. You don't need to go to this thing. You don't need to go to every single work event. Just give yourself some time and spend a couple of days doing something that's not demanding, that gives something back to me.
So what do you and the ladies that you associate with, what are some of the things that you do to, as best as possible, achieve work-life balance? And it's interesting because a few weeks ago I was watching a live stream of a lady who has has a company that deals with men with beards. And the host asked her about, how do you keep balance in your life? She says, balance does not exist.
Exactly.
So what do you and some of your ladies do to try to get as close of balance as possible?
Yeah. To me, I think that statement is an accurate one in that balance doesn't exist. I feel that it's more of a spectrum. So there's times when things are more in equilibrium, like where you feel like, you're showing up for your husband, you're showing up for your kids, you're showing up for yourself, and you're still making moves on the job. And then there's times when one thing is going to overwhelm you. Like you'll be getting ready to go to work and all of a sudden you have a sick kid. What choice can you make? It's every decision affects that spectrum. But I feel like what I do and what some women that I associate with do is that we check each other. I'm not afraid to ask, like, hey man, you look kind of tired. What's going on? What's going on with you? Can I help? You need a break? Send your kids over to my house. They'll have a play date and you take a date time with your husband, or just take a dang nap. And they do the same thing for me. So I'm like, hey, would it be okay if, my son comes over for the afternoon and I send my daughter in another direction, and then I have a quiet house for a few hours where I can do what I want with that time. And in most cases, if I'm really that tired, I will nap, or I will read a book quietly, or I'll watch a movie and just do something that allows me to be down for a while. Another thing that we do is there's a group of ladies here in Bolivia with me, and we play tennis every week.
Nice.
So, at least we get to go outside, be in nature. We get to do a sport that's really fun. We get to spend time with each other, and we don't have to talk about our kids. We don't have to talk about work. We can just shoot the breeze. We can check in with each other. We can talk about those subjects if we want to, but there's no expectation of, oh, I got to leave because, my kid needs X or my husband needs Y, or there's a deadline at work, because we have dedicated this time. It's sacred. We don't allow anything to really affect that time. That's our time, and we really hold it as something precious. Another thing that sometimes we do is we try to do like self-care. So we'll have like a ladies spa day or something, and we'll all go and get our nails done, or we'll all go to the movies and just call it like, girls' night out type thing, or we'll just go have some cocktails. And that happens probably not as often as it should, but it happens often enough for us to still feel like there's a little piece left for us only. It's our little piece that we don't have to give away. We're not giving it to the job or to our spouse or to our kids, but it's something that we can hold on for ourselves and do for ourselves that helps us kind of keep going with all of the other demands that we have placed on us.
Well, I hope you realize that you're blessed to have those outlets.
Yes. And I feel very blessed, but I also feel like you have to make those outlets yourself. I mean, all of these things are things that we created for ourselves because we knew that we needed them. So, I knew that I wanted to start playing tennis again because I played as a kid. It's something I've always enjoyed doing. I love it. And I want to continue to play it. And I went around looking for people. I was like, hey, do you have any other tennis players here? And we found some. And so we put together our little group. And now we play every week. And every once in a while, we'll throw a little tournament together, have a barbecue where all the kids come. And because there's a bunch of kids there, they entertain each other. So the parents can be off to the side and enjoy the time as well. So it's kind of like, being creative about how you use your time and trying to find ways in which you can still take the burden off of yourself and let other things take care of some of the things that you would normally be responsible for. And it is a blessing that I'm in a state in life that I'm able to carve that out, because I know there are some parents and there are some people in circumstances where they just can't. And it's those people that I worry most about.
Right. In your situation, the work-life balance thing, was that something that you negotiated with your husband before you got married, or was it something that came up during your marriage journey?
That's a good question. It is something that we talked a little bit about in advance, because I told you I've always been kind of a high energy person. I'm always involved in a bunch of things. So that's my nature. And he knew that going into the relationship, because I was like, that's not going to change. Motherhood isn't going to slow me down. Being a professional and a wife isn't going to slow me down. I'm still going to want to do the things that I want to do. And I've always done those things. So I'm not going to sacrifice that. Of course, when I had babies, things did slow down because babies require more time and more attention. But as my kids became more and more independent, my interest started to ratchet back up. But I was fortunate that I chose well. And I chose someone who, even though I agree with your statement earlier on that you can't really truly know somebody else 100% because you don't even know yourself 100%, I feel like I was fortunate in that I chose someone who knew me enough to know what he could do and what he couldn't do, and what I would expect from him and what he expects from me. And when we feel like we're getting out of harmony with that, we always come back to center. Like, he'll tell me if he feels frustrated, like, hey, I feel like you're not around. I really feel overwhelmed. Can you help me? And I say, you know what? You're right. I've been traveling a lot. I didn't even realize it, because you're having to pick up the slack in my absence. So, but that goes back to my point about communication. The thing that I think works in our relationship is that we talk. We may not always like what the other one has to say, but that's any relationship. But we say it. We still give each other the benefit of the doubt. And when I feel that way about him, I'm like, hey man, I'm tired of being the only one that picks up these dirty clothes. So whatever. I'm tired of picking up these socks. Not for him, but also for the kids. And he'll be like, all right. And so for a couple of weeks, it'll get better because he knows that it's frustrating for me.
Yes.
And so we do, but we express those things to each other. And I feel like that's been sort of the key for allowing me to be able to do all the many things that I do, because he gets me, he understands that, and he really steps up. I'm very, very lucky. Like you said before about I'm blessed because I have these other outlets with my female group. I'm also blessed to have a spouse and a partner in life that is as supportive as he is, because I think he grew up in a much more traditional situation where, his mom was the main one at home doing the household things, even though she also worked. And his father came from a family where it had more traditional values, where he was a breadwinner, but that's where it ended. He would come home and he would wait for the dinner to be served to him. Things like that. So, knowing that's the environment that my husband was raised in, it's very nice that he does not in turn have those expectations of me, because if he did, then our relationship wouldn't work.
Say it, sister. Say it, sister.
I'm just saying, it's true. I'm gonna keep it real. So.
I know that.
Yes.
So, you get a chance to mentor younger ladies, correct?
Yes, I do.
Does this conversation ever come up with them, and what are they going through if you do get a chance to share this subject with them?
It does come up because a lot of them ask me, especially females of color, because in my line of work, the lifestyle can be demanding because we are separated from our immediate family and friend networks. We're separated from what's familiar. We're thrown into literally foreign ways of life, totally different societal contexts and frameworks, and sometimes thrown into countries where there's a lot of xenophobia or ethnocentrism or, hatred, or, people still look at you and consider you a monkey or whatever if you're a woman of color. So do you really feel comfortable dating in a society like that? Do you even feel comfortable putting yourself out there to meet somebody if you're afraid that you're just going to keep bumping into a bunch of people who are racist or who look down upon you based on what you look like, based on your race? And so we end up talking about more how to be strategic about going to places where they think they may find potential mates or have a bigger dating pool. And then later on, fast forwarding a few years to young ladies who may have found someone, but they're like, oh, well, he's not really willing to follow my career. He's not really willing to, compromise. That's where we start talking about like certain red flags. Because I'm like, if you want to be with somebody who wants to be with you, then you're going to have to compromise because he wants to be with you because of who you are and what you're doing. But if all of a sudden it's a game changer, or he's not willing to go forward because now you have to go overseas, then maybe that's not someone you want to invest your time in. And so we talk about that, because if he's already showing an unwillingness to kind of compromise because she's got something on the table, then to me that's a sign that he may be unwilling to compromise about other things later on down the line. Now, I'm not saying throw the relationship away, but I always tell them to go ahead and have that conversation with him and ask him, very plainly, I mean, this is my career. I've got to go overseas. Are you willing to come with me? If you're not willing to come with me, then, what can we do? And in some cases, the men do say, you know what, it's an adventure. I want to be with you. Let's see what it's like. In other cases, they're like, no, I don't want to sacrifice my own career for yours. And so I understand that. And he's well within his rights to say that. But I also feel like, to me, that's a sign. That's, to me, a red flag. That maybe that particular personality still puts himself before the relationship, where I think a lot of women still put themselves second to the relationship.
Mm-hmm. So the younger women, do you get encouraged after you share with them and they see the light, so to speak?
I think so. I feel like sometimes it's pressure on me because they look at me as this role model of a woman who's been able to rise through the ranks of my profession with my marriage intact, raising, good kids, smart kids, healthy kids, and all those things. But they also don't see all the work that goes behind it. Because I always tell them, I'm like, it may look good, but it's not always what it seems. It's not easy. It's work. We work every day at our relationship. And, philosophy that I have is anything worth having is worth working for. And that is the truth when it comes to relationships as well. Like we work in college to get our degree. We work on our resume to get a good job. We work in our jobs to get a promotion or, higher paying position. So why would your relationship be any different? So especially as you spend more time with someone, especially in a long-term relationship, you keep growing in your direction and that person keeps growing in their direction. So if you don't work together, then you're going to grow apart. So, and it's okay if you do, but if you work together on the relationship daily, you'll still move together. So I might still move off to the left and he might move off to the right, but we're both still moving. And as long as we are checking in with one another, communicating with one another, and working on that relationship, then it'll still work over time. And so, that's what I believe and that's what I tell them. And so, like I said, it's a lot of pressure on me because I'm like, well, man, if we have a fight, then I feel like it's the end of the world. Our relationship might be on the rocks or something, because then they're like, oh, see, there's no more positive examples of Black females who are successfully rising through the ranks with their marriage intact. Because in our profession, unfortunately, this is the same, I think, of most professions, when we look at the senior ranks, when we look at where we could end up in our career, there are still vastly more men. And of the women who have made it, regardless of race, many of them have sacrificed their relationships for the rise in their career. So they're either divorced or they're never married, or, there's very few examples of women who have managed to rise to the level of ambassador or undersecretary or secretary of state with their marriage and family intact. And that's really discouraging.
Yeah,
and so I think when they look at me, they see me as someone who has the potential to rise to those ranks and somehow manage to keep the family piece together. And I'm like, man, it ain't easy, man. It's like I'm the conductor of a train, or I'm like the ringleader at a circus. That's how it feels, because I'm too busy trying to like work all my different, circles at the circus to make sure everything is still functioning properly. And I'm the center of it. So I'm like the eye of the storm, and it's swirling around me, and I'm trying to keep it under control. That's my life. And that's the work-life balance, which is why, it's a conversation.
With women of color, as they are ascending quicker up the corporate ladder or in society,
Mm-hmm.
how much more pressure is it putting on them? And are you concerned about the additional pressures that it brings? Because I always say to people, they say, oh, I got a promotion. I say, that's great, but you're asked to do more, and hopefully you're getting paid more, but that means you're expected to do more.
Exactly.
And can you handle it?
Yeah, I do tell them that, because I tell them, it may be difficult for you now at the early parts of your career as you're trying to find yourself as a professional, figure out where your passions lie, what your niche is, and also trying to couple that with a new relationship or an early relationship. It's not an easy time. But I also tell them it won't get any easier, because as you continue to move up the ranks, you're going to start having more responsibilities laid at your feet. There's going to be more things that you have to do at the job, more people that you are accountable for. At the early entry levels, you don't manage anybody. So you don't have that responsibility. But as soon as you move up one or two ranks, now you've got a team underneath you. So now you're accountable to those above and below you. And now you've moved ahead, let's say 5-10 years. So now you're married, maybe the first baby's coming along. So now you're responsible for a new child relationship, the people you report to and the people that report to you. So, and that's not going to change. The higher you go in this profession, the more responsibility you have, because the larger the team underneath you becomes. And the more you have at stake, because now you're going to be more of a public figure. Now you're the one who's out there explaining foreign policy. You're the one out there having to promote policies instead of just being sort of the action officers on the ground doing the research that you give to the senior levels to make those decisions. Now you're the one having to make those decisions, and there's a lot more at stake. So I try to explain to them that you've got to figure out how it will work for you at the early levels, because that sets you on the right trajectory to be able to deal with those additional responsibilities when you get there.
With as much communication as you do with women in regards to this subject, can you tell in a first conversation with a lady if she's on the right path or not right path when it comes to work-life balance?
Yeah, I can usually tell. It's pretty clear to me, because, it'll come across in certain things that they'll say, or things that they say that they're willing to do, or when they give me some tale of something that's annoying them on the job. I can usually tell right there what their tolerance level is. I get a sense of what their threshold is and what they are able to do. And in conversations, and you know me, I'll just go straight for it. I'll ask them, direct questions about, well, what about this situation or that? Or what have you done? What happened when you said this? Or why didn't you say that? And based on their response, I can sort of see where they are. And then usually I can tweak my advice to help them kind of get out of that rut, or at least see it. Because a lot of times people don't see their own flaws, like nobody does. That's what blind spots are. So I try to help them see those blind spots and figure out ways around it, because if they can't solve it at the entry level, it's not going to be easier to solve when they get to the mid-level or the senior levels either. So I try to redirect them and help them figure it out for themselves, but I sort of hold up a mirror to them and I say, hey, this is what I see. I'm not perfect. I'm not, psychic, but I see this, and I was in your shoes only just a few years ago, and I know what you're experiencing, and this is what I did. These are the things that I faced. So, take it for what it's worth, but maybe it'll help you avoid some of the same pitfalls.
Understood.
But it's immediately apparent to me, though, when I talk to them, like immediately.
I want to go back to your mother just for a second.
Sure.
Knowing and being raised by her, how would she be able to handle your work-life balance, in your opinion?
She couldn't. She couldn't. Because I talk to her all the time.
Right.
And she always tells me, she's like, Lia, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do so many things and how you do so many things so well. And she's like, I couldn't do it. She even tells me herself, so I don't feel like I'm disparaging my mom. God forbid, I would never do that.
Right.
But she admits it. She's like, Lia, I just don't know how you do it. I couldn't have done it, and I didn't do it. Like, there were definitely times as a kid that she was just like, screw it. She just threw in the towel. Was like, I'm not going to put that down. Like, I may never pick it up again, but I can't do it. Because there was a period of time when she was like literally trying to make all of our costumes by hand, because she can sew and she's very, crafty like that. But as we got older, and of course, me being me, I wanted to have all these elaborate costumes that required a lot of detail. So she just got to the point where I think I was about 12, which means my other sisters were like 8 and 10. So she was like, we're going to go to the store. And we never went back to handmade costumes again. So, it's little things on a level like that, but that's just an example of something that she couldn't maintain that level of, involvement or investment of time. So, she tells me all the time, she's like, Lia, I just don't know how you do it. I don't.
Do you feel that it's important for older women of color to find out their mother's stories if they can?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
learn from them and adopt it where they can in their situations of current work-life balance?
Yes, because I feel like even though the context when our mothers were, in the position where we are now was different, and the expectations were a bit different, and maybe the work environment was a bit different, there are still lessons that transcend time, and there are certain best practices that we could learn from them, as well as pitfalls that we could avoid from their experience. And even though you're not your mom, you're not your dad, the apple really doesn't fall that far from the tree, and that is the way in which you were raised. So I feel like there are some things, whether people want to admit it or not, that you may fall into just by virtue of who you are and where you came from. So if you don't know those stories, you may be doomed to repeat cycles and patterns that the generations before us have already gone through, and so you're not making any progress, you're just kind of going around the hamster wheel again. So if you know the story, and you know what they've gone through, what they've experienced, how they dealt with it or didn't deal with it, it may help you in situations that you face. Because even though the work environment, I think, has changed, a lot of the same issues have not. There's a lot of the same issue, things going on, like people of color not being promoted at the same rates, lack of, females at senior levels, lack of promotional opportunities, discriminatory practices in the workplace about how women can wear their hair. Like, that's been going on forever. And it always seems to disproportionately affect women of color. So, to me, if you don't talk to the old generations and hear how they dealt with it, then you're going to be doomed to repeat some of the same things that they went through.
Well said. Well, as we wind down our conversation, because Lia's traveling, I think, tomorrow.
I am.
And where you off?
Definitely part of Bolivia.
Oh, my gosh. So we're going to let her off easy on this. But as we close, can you give some best practices when it comes to work-life balance for women, for men, and then for the ladies?
Sure. I would say for men that it's okay to step up and do things that might have traditionally been seen as women's work. It doesn't make you less of a man. And as far as I'm concerned, it makes you even more appealing as a partner, because you do what needs to be done. And that's that's what women need. We don't need you to be our breadwinners or the people who take care of our financial things, because we're already doing it for ourselves. What we need is someone who's willing to do what needs to be done. If you see that, like I said, if you see that load of laundry in the corner, and normally she does the laundry, but you know she's had a bad day, just do it. There's nothing wrong with that. Plus, it's a skill that you should be able to have anyway. Just, don't feel as though it diminishes you as a man or makes you less of a man or makes you not the head of the household because you're doing things that typically the mother of the house would do. I think that makes you a better partner to your spouse, your female spouse, if you step up and you help. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, especially if there's an expectation that she has to go to work every day and is a breadwinner. So why would you have the same expectation that she's going to work a full day just like you did, and then she's going to come home and do everything and you don't have to do it? It doesn't make sense to me. So I think you shouldn't be afraid to step up more in the household side, spend more time with the kids, give her, a couple of, weekend days free, take turns, 2 Saturdays of the week, let her go be with her girls, and the other 2 Saturdays, you go be with your boys. It's okay. I mean, just work as partners. So that's the advice that I would give for men. It's okay. Do the things that need to be done. Do those dishes. Pick up your own dirty socks. Do the laundry. Help out with the kids. Do your daughter's hair. It's not just mama's job. You can comb. It's the same as combing your own hair. Just do it. For women, I would say, know your limitations. Don't expect to have to do it all the time. It's not possible. And don't do everything at the cost of yourself. Because if you keep depleting your own reserves, then you're not going to be any good to anybody. So ask for help when you need it. Don't expect that your spouse or partner or husband is going to know intuitively what you need done. If you're tired, if you're not feeling well, then say so. If you need help, ask for it. I think a lot of, like I said earlier, I think women paint themselves into the corner by expecting that their spouse will know what they need to do. But I think that that's unfair, and it puts you in a bad position, and it also puts them in a bad position, because you're going to feel resentful towards them if they don't step up. But if they don't know what you need, then how can they help you? And also, if you set the precedent by doing everything, then you've already set the expectation in his mind that you can handle it. And you're going to do everything, and he'll continue to expect you to do everything. But if you cannot do that or don't want to do that, then tell him and have a conversation about, let's break this down. Like, these things need to be done. I'll do these things. You do those things. And, I think that's a good way to move forward, and without putting too much burden on either party. And at the end of the day, everything needs to get done will get done. So I would say those are the main things for girls, for ladies.
Does that message change any for ladies who are single?
Yes, it only changes in the fact that if you don't have that immediate partner to call upon your family, call upon your village. Your best girlfriend is always going to have your back, and she will help you in whatever ways you need. If that means you need her to pick your kids up a couple of days after school, she'll make a way to do it for you. If you need to take advantage of other group options, like take advantage of the play dates, send your kids one day a week to their best friend's house, and then the next weekend you take the kids at your house. There's ways to do it. Don't be afraid to ask for help, especially if you're a single parent, because you get no breaks. And you need them just as much as anybody else, if not more so. So I would just encourage single parents to go ahead and ask for that help, take advantage of your network, and don't be afraid to ask for help. It doesn't make you a weak parent. It doesn't diminish you at all. In fact, even when you have 2 parents in the household, I do believe the adage that it takes a village to raise a child. So use your village.
She hit it out of the park again. Out of bounds as always. Lia Miller makes it happen.
I try.
Well, no, you do. You don't try. You do. You do. Would like to thank you for taking time out of your positive, productive schedule before traveling again to share with our audience tonight. If people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
They can reach me through a variety of ways. I'm Lia Miller, but I'm also in the blogosphere, Lia World Traveler. So you can find me on my blog at liaworldtraveler.com. I'm on Facebook as Lia World Traveler, Instagram the same, Pinterest also the same, and Twitter I'm Lia World Travels. So just look for me at any of those handles, and I respond. I'm on LinkedIn as Lia Miller. You can find me there. It's the same face, same hair. It's gonna be me. You'll go get me.
Fantastic. Well, it's Dr. Vibe here. I'm host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show. Also know that this is the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations. I'm also a certified empowerment coach and president and CEO of Express Your Vibe Coaching Communications. If you'd like a complimentary 30-minute empowerment session, you can reach out to me at Twitter at drvibeshow. Also, email dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. You can also go to my website. At the top of my website, it says Contact the Dr. Vibe Show. If you click on that link, you can email me, you can send me an audio message, you can send me a video message. So you got that going on. Also, if you want to listen to replays or watch replays, since we're watching right now, watch replays of my epic conversations. All you need to do is go to YouTube and put in the search engine, the space, dr.space, vibe space, show. If you want to listen to replays of my audio epic conversations, website, the drvibeshow.com. Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Tuned In Radio, Google Play Music Store, iHeartRadio. You can listen to selected audio replays at, yes, I know this off by heart, Leah. I've done it enough. Yes. So you can also listen to selected audio conversations at thegoodmanproject.com, also at WJMS Radio out of New York. I am also a brand ambassador for the only online magazine dedicated to African Americans in food, wine, and travel. The name of the magazine is Cuisine Noir Magazine. Website address is cuisinenoirmag.com. Also, if you need help, a business or entrepreneur getting media promotion, come check me out. I have a service called Getting Media Coverage where I help businesses and entrepreneurs elevate their business through media promotion. And finally, Friday morning, 7:25 a.m. Eastern Time, you can listen to me on WURD Radio out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It's Pennsylvania's largest black public music station. They are on 96.1 FM, 900 AM in the Philadelphia area. They're online at their website, also to the Google Play Store, Apple Store, and also at Tuned In Radio app. I'm part of a segment called The Week That Was, which is hosted by Christopher Flood, the drummer Norris, and Ike Raw, where we talk about stories that made it publicity-wise and stories that did not make it publicity-wise over the past week. So after all of that, and Leah says he did it again, three last things before I sign out. First of all, live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Also, sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. And finally, block assumptions. So I'd like to thank everyone who watched live or on the replay. As you like to say, God bless, peace be well, and walk good. Keep the faith, and thanks for watching. Good night. Oh, one other thing. I forgot. I should promo this now. The 11th of April. Wow, 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 wow. The Bolivian princess, the Bolivian locked princess.
Yes.
No, Bolivian queen. Bolivian locked queen. You're not a princess. You're a queen. Bolivian locked queen. And Dr. Tachi from the great program Mediascope, which everyone should check out every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on Facebook Live and Periscope, which is one of the best streams out there in regards to media, tech, and pop culture. These two ladies are going to get together, and if you don't want to check out this conversation, I think your wood is wet. It's going to be, who are black women's friends? Mm-hmm. So we're going to have a conversation about that. It's going to be a tri-country conversation because I'm in Canada, Dr. Tachi's in Florida in the United States, and our Bolivian locked queen is in Bolivia. So please do not miss that. That is going to, it's going to be epic. So we expect a lot out of that. So had to get that in, early promo. God bless, peace be well, keep the faith, and walk good.